Good afternoon, all. I think we're just waiting for the last of the few to join us, and then I'll happily kick into the webinar. Just bear with us a couple of minutes. Thanks very much. Just see a couple of people arriving. We'll just give it a moment or two just for the final stragglers to join us, and then I'll kick off. Right, I'll kick off. So thanks everybody for joining. My name's Gary Fielding. I am a solution specialist at Ultima. Very quick potted history for myself. I've been working in the data center and infrastructure probably for close to 25 years, with the last 5 of those as a specialist across distribution and reseller. What I've been asked today is, I have to confess, a lot of those years were as more of the sales as opposed to the technical side of the business. But I was given the opportunity to attend HPE Tech Jam. It's my first technical conference. Attended over in Vienna, and I was kindly asked to provide a little bit of my personal takeaway from that, and to share with customers what we think HPE, from a perspective around storage, server infrastructure, and the data center piece that I look after, would be interested in. So without further ado, I'll bring up the presentation, and we can walk through that. It's happy to be interactive, but I would put a caveat here that these are my views, although I am ably assisted by a colleague, Donald from HPE, who can keep me honest and make sure that those are true to the word. So essentially, the overview of the webinar is there are a number of themes that were talked about through a number of the keynotes across the week. My key takeaways from this were around the Broadcom license changes. We still think that's a very compelling event that's going on with customers. Is affecting a lot of the infrastructure space. HPE storage strategy is obviously something that customers are interested to understand exactly where they're going. Sustainability in compute is, I still feel that personally sustainability has become far more of a precedent being pushed down from senior management teams in customers. So we think it's quite relevant. And compute and the edge is actually an area where a lot of the data is being generated or will be generated over the next couple of years. So it's a mixture of those two, and reasoning why those areas have been covered. And finally, a little bit sort of just of a personal take is that the abilities of the demo portals from HPE, I think, are a step ahead of other people's that I've seen, and it's just to give you guys a flavour of what that looks like. Although most of this is partner facing, we're happy to share what we can. In relation to sort of moving on to the introduction and themes, I wasn't totally sure what to expect from when I headed to Vienna. I was headed with a lot of excitement. I have to say, personally, I was very, very impressed with the way that the event was run. There was in total, I think, around 2,500 technical consultants, both from HPE and from partners globally. Very, very well run event. I sort of took a lot away from just the way it was run and the importance. The overarching theme, as you can see, hopefully from the slide, is that HPE haven't run a technical conference like this for a couple of years. So they were very keen to reaffirm and highlight the importance of the technical community to them and to their customers. Obviously, it goes without saying that technical resource in partners, customers, and in vendor are imperably important to decisions being made. I think it's 3/4, 75-80% of all purchase decisions are on the back of typical advice from technical resource at various levels within the requirements. So it's understandable why they're keen to reinforce that and reignite it. Very quickly, the strategic priorities that HPE aligned to this was around specialization and where they believe is a strength of their portfolio, solution selling, where obviously it's that breadth of portfolio from HPE is very compelling. The technical enablement, so obviously providing that to the customers through the channel, and the pre-sales experience that the customers are gathering from those partners, including ourselves. The overriding themes for Tech Jam, as not surprisingly, I would think, around AI and data. And I would say all of the keynotes and a significant number of the sessions that were attended by myself and my colleagues had an element of this within them as the sort of overarching strategic goals. I think it makes common sense as AI is probably the current pivotal generational technology, and will continue to be probably for the next few years, and probably the most pervasive since the internet was launched. I think there's a lot of taglines that came out of it. Mark Waters very passionately, Mark Waters is the worldwide HPE Global SVP, and he spoke passionately about AI, believing that we are now exiting the cloud era and we're now entering the AI era. And we're actually already at wave 3, which is around the ability for customers around enterprise and mid-market to take advantage and personalize their AI experiences to their businesses, which is an exciting time. It's not about customers being expected to scale out and accept some of the commercials for that. That's already been done. There's a lot. The whole market is platform led, and as you'll see, the HPE GreenLake platform is probably a little ahead of other people and other peer vendors, as Antonio Neri saw a little earlier than usual, that the GreenLake and that platform was the way forwards and will be. Just to put into context, I know that there's a lot of information around AI. It's an exciting area because of simply the colossal market that's available for it. Most of the analysts would say that the global AI market is currently worth somewhere around 180 billion pounds currently. That figures up from around 135 billion in 2022, and that's a double of what it was in 2020-2021, which was less than 100 million. They expect it to push past the 200 billion pound bar by the end of next year. And we're also, as I'll allude to a little later in other slides, it's more the board level pushing it down, is that there are budgets being made available for businesses for AI, as the businesses understand the value and the ability to how this could literally really accelerate their business. I put this slide in here as probably say it was in every single presentation that I was there. The reason for that is when we've spoke about AI and data, this simple slide describes the areas and the strengths of HPE across all of those, from a data and AI across both transformation through data, so the storage and data protection elements, and the strength of the portfolio, including data fabric. So the ability that HPE's portfolio has had AI and machine learning analytics in the guise of InfoSight and various features, probably for 6 or 7 years. It's just with the explosion of large language models and ChatGPT, all of a sudden AI has taken on different focus, and it's sort of transcended outside of IT. It's in everyday. It's pervasive in every single element of what we do. Modernise IT infrastructure is obviously what we're traditionally talking to customers around. That's obviously just optimizing the existing hardware to cope with the relentless data growth and the challenges that are evolving from ever-growing applications and businesses that are becoming more disparate and distributed, and customers having infrastructures to be able to evolve and adjust to this. Finally, it's the simplify hybrid cloud operations. Obviously, the complexity of having cloud environments, multi-cloud and multiple public cloud environments with various customers is obviously testing IT teams that were already working with very little and looking for support. GreenLake platform, as you can see across the bottom of the screen all the way across, does provide that. We feel it acts as the bridge between true public cloud, private cloud, and on-prem. The AI ops is obviously an interesting element, as there was a very, very inductive session about OpsRamp, which was the recent acquisition from HPE around that, which does provide sort of that granularity, the customization and dashboards available to provide a single pane of glass across every single environment the customer needs to look after, and centralize it and automate it and take a lot of the autonomous and sort of time taking tasks of teams away from them through some elements of the Morpheus orchestration engine in the back of HPE GreenLake. I feel it's a really, really good show of the breadth and the strength of HPE and assisting customers in their hybrid cloud journey as hybrid is the way. So the first major session, a major thing that we wanted to talk about was Broadcom. Just thought it was worth having a quick refresher, as I don't want to assume anybody on the call is fully aware of it, just in case somebody isn't. Obviously, Broadcom acquiring VMware was the largest acquisition in IT history, I believe, in August last year at just shy of 70 billion. In the back end of last year, VMware announced that they would be discontinuing perpetual licenses and the SNS or support software and support renewal contracts. They've run the perpetual model probably for close to a decade. So it was not an unsurprising move when they did that, as they were probably the last of the global supply of software vendors to move to a subscription model. We had a further announcement on January 11th that the actual perpetual licenses and SNS contracts would actually be end of sale by February the 5th. And that every single part of the VMware portfolio would be exclusively run on subscription licenses. Essentially, the 4 bundles that you see in front of you are what the VMware portfolio is as stands. There's obviously been a significant amount of simplification and consolidation of their portfolio. I think prior to the acquisition with Broadcom, VMware's portfolio was running about 165, 170 SKUs for various feature sets and licenses, and that's now been consolidated to, I believe, 10 or 11 with the structures that you see in front of you. It was probably an overdue task, but the main feedback that was coming from HPE was very similar to what we had seen in our own engagements with our own existing customers. Unfortunately, there has been a significant cost increase across the board that's been implemented by Broadcom, which unsurprisingly has been reacted relatively negatively by customers, as it's been a significant increase. sometimes sort of 2.5, maybe 3 times what customers I've seen. HPE recognised that this had happened, and encouraging news was that they were on the same page as Ultima and what we'd seen, in that a lot of customers are still keen to remain with VMware, but they are far more open for evaluations of other alternatives to themselves, whether that be accelerating their cloud journey or accessing and reviewing alternative hypervisors. The messaging from HPE, and we've pushed it ourselves, is that HPE's portfolio around this is mature, it's proven, and it's ready to go. And they're following the initial trend that they're seeing with customers, which is that more of a short-term renewals initially, while customers then take the time to carry out a more thorough review and more of a holistic overview, as unfortunately virtualization is affecting other projects with the budgets that's being taken from it because of the increases in the costs. And the 3 main messages and 3 main pillars of HPE's messaging that we took back from it was optimize, diversify, and simplify. Optimize, it's around the consolidation and reduction of the customer's VMware TCO. Typically, this is done through VMware tools or for cloud physics, where a sort of an overview of what those VMs are doing is actually being carried out. And in some cases, we're seeing it. There's a lot of VMs that haven't been turned off, so there's the opportunity with potentially up to sort of 50-60% savings, where you've reduced the number of VMs on the systems using those tools and going through the assessment exercises that Ultima can offer. There are aligned solutions across the bundles. So with the 4 bundles that we spoke about before, in relation to standard and the new VMware Cloud Foundation, or VMware VBF, and the options around private cloud enterprise and private cloud business for enterprise really strongly align with those offerings. With more of the full stack sort of VMware Cloud Foundation, then GreenLake Flex VCF can be offered for that, and that's offering a full stack powered AI from HPE. With Diversify, it's evaluating the other options that are out there. HPE is an 18-year relationship with VMware for both innovation and for mutual gain. So they operate and have a number of offerings, both around containers, so the sort of AWS EKS, OpenShift, Esmeralda, which is obviously still part of HPE's portfolio, and Kubernetes, for example, and the alternative virtualization hypervisors, so the Hyper-V, AHV from Nutanix, SUSE, and some other Linux KVM and Open Linux, along with Proxmox. And because of the evolution of PCBE and PCBE from the GreenLake platform, they also offer that, with the PCBE being the latest sort of almost essentially self-service hybrid cloud offering from HPE. There are some, unfortunately, because it's a technology, Tech Jam is obviously a tech expo, they are a little dry and a little light on announcements. There was sort of a glean that I was able to get that there would probably be a lot more of announcements in Discover later in the year. I think it's in June or July in Vegas, so not long to wait. Around PCBE and PCB, they were alluded to at the Tech Jam as areas that they think is the growth in relation to the VMware event that's happening across the markets. They did, however, release a requirement that PCB and PCBE are now available on AWS as well as Azure. They're obviously working to provide more announcements around that and other hypervisors. But there also was an exciting announcement about the Electra MP, which I'll cover off in the storage element of this webinar. The final pillar was Simplify, which was sort of unifying IT ops and data management across heterogeneous environments. As we've said before, a lot of customers, it's sometimes a little bit fragmented with different teams, different data silos. So the ability to uniform that into sort of hybrid observability is something that we're seeing a lot of customers absolutely being very interested in understanding. The GreenLake for private cloud solutions and OpsRamp provide that entry level into it. We're seeing a lot of customers that have obviously had access to GreenLake, and we're now following on for them to actually see the true return on investment on that as part of the packages they've already purchased, as elements of GreenLake are already available through the Electra and Reliant Gen 11 ranges, and have been probably since about middle of last year through the platforms of the Compute Ops Manager and the Data Services Cloud Console. In relation to sort of more of the unification, the lifecycle management, so the DSCC platform, which it allows you to manage all of your storage from a single point and sort of automate a number of feature sets, whether that be patching, vulnerability, management, or alerts, all that great stuff that customers are looking for and their IT teams are looking for is now there and ready to go, and it's even more intuitive. And then finally, the cloud management was the element of that where GreenLake Flex with the Morpheus, PCE and PCBE are bringing all of those into a simple and intuitive solution. I know that I'm talking fairly fast, so please engage or ask any questions if you have any. But the PCBE option that I keep alluding to, I wanted to include a slide on there just for context. So it allows you to manage your VMs across hybrid cloud environments on demand, whether that be AWS, Azure, or on-prem. It obviously simplifies all of the data protection and mobility that you would get across your hybrid cloud. The automation with Morpheus allows you, as with one-click multi-system deployments with blueprints, is that the flexibility and granularity of that platform are immense. It allows you to consume all of your VMs and your IaaS across multiple environments and multi-tenant environments from a single pane of glass. And then obviously it allows you to deploy, monitor and manage on-prem virtualization stacks at whichever layer. Some of this has historically had to be covered by a whole ecosystem of partners and partners. The ability that this is done under one absolutely is a strength of the portfolio from HPE. And obviously we just allude to some of the hyper-converged environments such as SimpliVity or DHCI from the new Electra range. The second key takeaway I took from the session was about HPE storage strategy. There's been a relentless data growth. I think the analysts, various analysts that we've looked at, say it should be somewhere ridiculous like 180 zettabytes by the end of next year. I didn't even know about a zettabyte probably until about 3 or 4 years ago. They've had to create something beyond exabyte because it's growing so fast. As you can imagine, data and AI is growing and driving storage with sort of more object and fast file stores as key enablers for customers. Organizations are looking for a competitive edge. So HPE talked us through their 6-pack strategy, highlighting the focus areas. I'll probably start in the bottom left with the rationalization of the portfolio. Essentially, HPE has been going through a simplification and a rebranding of the storage portfolio. Essentially, as I've alluded to there, is to drive profitability for the customers by having a simplified infrastructure with a single support contract. Obviously, reduction of bringing all of the reductions of power and cooling, all of that good stuff into it. Having the depth of the portfolio from HPE is sometimes seen as a double-edged sword, but they have strengthened their on-prem and their storage as a service offerings, which leads me into the SDS and hybrid. This is obviously the expansion of the GreenLake storage to service offerings. Obviously, there's been GreenLake for file and GreenLake for block. GreenLake object is expected, we are hopefully loosely this year. But we're obviously seeing a far greater demand around that unstructured data. Block and the journey to one, forgive me, is more around the transaction process and the complete end user transactions. So it's just to strengthen what's already been a key pivot of their portfolio. The initial sort of intriguing observability I've seen is that HPE is sort of disaggregating its block storage software, HPE block storage and GreenLake, from the Electra hardware. So it enables the GreenLake for block to actually operate on beyond HPE's own storage platforms, which I think is an interesting market trend from those guys. It's not really been done before, so it's just showing that they are growing those lines in parallel. Unstructured, so the win in AI, we've obviously spoken about the growth of the data requirements within that. Typically that unstructured data is not compressible, it's not deduped, it's file formats that require more scalable, very scalable solutions. Creating insights and inferences from that data, creating sort of data lakes, removing the data silos, we've seen it as the largest growth area inside of HPE. We've seen it a lot more in our public sector customers, seeing it a lot more in commercial customers, and some of this is also being driven by the wider compliance that's coming into play as well around sort of DORA and other directives that are being pushed through that will probably affect customers more over the next 12 to 15 months. The go-to-market is it's essentially combining and carrying on with the work that HPE are doing. It's obviously still going after any existing 3PAR and Nimble installed base that is rapidly approaching end of support. Some of those lines are already in end of support. Some of them will end probably towards the end of 2025. So there's a lot of impetus to make sure that customers aren't left backing, and there is obviously a real value in moving across the new solutions, increase performance, reduce capacity and space in racks, reduce cooling, of course, power consumption, and there's all positives for the largest sustainability requirements, which we'll cover off more in the other sessions. Conscious I'm wrapping through this. Hopefully there's no immediate questions from anybody, or I will continue. The stunned silence, I will continue. So I include this slide typically is just to show sort of the breadth of the portfolio around each of the storage tiers and the different storage types that HPE offer. A number of these are obviously OEM partners that they work with that are market leading, people like Weka and Vast File, with Cumulo and Scality, more around those workloads that require that can tolerate a little bit more latency but are looking for very significant capacity requirements. Weka and Vast are more around those requirements that cannot tolerate the latency, which we're seeing more and more of those as it's delivered locally with some of these critical applications. The third of the key takeaways I took away was sustainability, definitely around compute. Gartner obviously is there saying that 50% of CIOs will have a performance metric tier tied to IC sustainability. I am seeing that personally a lot more than we have been in the last few years, so I would agree. Just some regular sort of there's a raft of statistics, so I try to keep them relatively clean, but it's not just a nice to have with sustainability now, it's an absolute pivotal part of the business and is absolutely a key decision making factor on the vendors and partners that you guys are working with, is how are they on their sustainability journey and how important is it in their own organizations. Happy to say I work for a company that's exceedingly important around the sustainability, and we are on target to hitting our carbon neutral goals. I think it's 2030 with the last release online with everybody else. So happy to say that, and I'm happy to say that HPE are well ahead of that as well. Uh, the message with more data being generated at the edge, um, there was a unique point in that potentially pushing assets as long as possible is not as sustainable, is not as optimally sustainable. Recent testing by HPE, which actually sort of shocked me a little bit, is because you're expecting certain stats, but some of these are quite high, is if customers have Gen 9 servers and they're looking at the Gen 11, the brand new current generation, currently there's an 8 times reduction in the number of servers and hosts that you would require if you take out Gen 11. So in layman's terms, sort of one server is basically almost equivalent to 8 Gen 9s from a performance and capacity point of view, but from the nature of the cooling. It's quite a good statistic. I mean, that increases further. I don't know if there's that many Gen 8s still out there now, probably a few, but not as many. And that stat goes up to 11 of the Gen 8s compared to a Gen 11, which is quite staggering, really, if you're looking at customers that are looking to consolidate. This obviously equates to over like 65, nearly 70% saving in power. That's obviously not taking into account the current price of power and utilities, which probably makes that sort of more of a significant investment from businesses. But the key one, I think, is on the far right-hand side, which is that it's a 6 times more performant per kilowatt than a Gen 9, than a Gen 8, and I think, sorry, that drops down to about 4 times for a Gen 9. I think off the top of my head, it's somewhere around 2 to 1 for a Gen 10, but obviously those are still more current products as opposed to the Gen 9s that are approaching end of life. I generally thought it was something that I would raise because I think it's something absolutely relevant for our customers, especially given the necessity of the data at the edge and how that data is expected to grow. I did see some frightening statistics around the edge that they expect that to be actually 75% of the data is going to be generated at the edge by the end of next year, and that would equate to sort of 4 times the size of what we'd classify as a sort of cloud. It's far more prevalent for the data on the edge, and it's definitely more important for customers not to suddenly bypass compute or their server hosts, and is definitely something they should be thinking about around the sustainability strategy. Something that was mentioned is the EU EED, Energy Efficiency Directive. It's going to force customers to be fully aware of what they're doing from a power consumption and what their energy efficiencies are. Similar to DORA, it's going to impact into the EU now. Obviously, the UK is not part of that, but there are a number of customers and potentially some of yourselves that have multi-gen, sort of have operations across Europe, not just UK, that will be impacted by these, and it's just really a matter of time before these are impacted and affected and actually become something that is standard in our own UK law. It's definitely something that we thought was pertinent, so it's definitely if you guys aren't aware of it, it's definitely something to be keeping in the back of the mind. And the final point that I've got from myself was is essentially around the demonstration portal for HPE. It is a partner tool. However, hopefully my screen is fairly clear with the categories that are here on the left-hand side, or on the right-hand side, sorry. It does cover the entirety of the portfolio. So the abilities for your partners to show you exactly what you're looking for from that portal is absolutely pertinent. The good thing about this is that there are multiple layers depending on the personas of the people within those demos. Whether it be something as a quick overview for someone in senior management, just to understand at high level the requirements. There are more interactive and more granular sessions that can be sort of built and bespoke for, or there can be some pre-recorded for teams that are, as expected, fairly tech sound. It's just more of an introduction to technology. And I took an away from the sessions from Tech Jam that it's a very, very valuable tool. Now I'm fully aware that I've been talking for a little while, So I'll close that off there. I'm just keen to cover off if there was any immediate questions. Apologies. Uh, Apologies, I'm not seeing any questions. I'm just waiting for them to go. In answer to your question, Mark, yes, I do. Is the simple answer. I think some of it is they've made it more sort of workload specific with the 5K, 6K, 9K, with the implementation and absorption of Primera and SimpliVity. I can see it being simplified a little bit further with this is aggregation we spoke about with sort of the evolution of the GreenLake for block, GreenLake object, and GreenLake file storage offerings. I still think they're going to run in parallel, but I think they will balance and consolidate further. Was there a specific element that you wanted to cover off, or is that literally covered off the point that you had? Fantastic. Thanks for that. Is there any questions from anybody else? I'm conscious that I did talk for a lot through that, and there's not been that many questions. I'm just keen to make sure that people have got what they needed to get out of that session. If anyone could let me know if they're happy with that. Okay. Hopefully, if there's no further questions, it probably sounds like that's a reasonable place to wrap up. I'd like to thank you again for taking the time to attend the webinar. I can happily share thank you, Mark. I'll happily share the presentation if you wanted to. If you just drop us a note in the chat, I'll happily distribute that, and I'm here for any further questions from anybody, should you guys have any. But again, thanks for taking the time to listen to me. It's much appreciated, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks very much indeed. Take care.